So let's talk about, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone who in the call. I'm Rajeev Samuel, and today I'll be talking about how we can balance developer experience with sustainability in Kubernetes platform using Kyverno policies. And as you may see, this is not just about technology, it's about responsibility. As engineers and technologists, we are building the future. So the way we design platforms directly impact not just the cost, but also the planet. Let me move to the next slide. Here is the roadmap for us for today. We'll start with why sustainability matters in platform engineering, and then dive into Kyverno's role as a policy engine and move into real strategies for resource optimization. We'll also look at how this integrates with developer experience, the metrics that prove impact, and finally some real-world examples. I'll close with the key takeaways that you may apply in your own organizations. And yeah, that's the agenda for today. Feel free to take questions on the chat, and or after the call, we'll cover that as well. So let's look at the priority of sustainability. Like cloud waste is no more than a budgeting problem. It's also an emission problem. So the tension here is clear. Developers want speed and agility, while organizations need sustainability and efficiency. The point here is sustainability can't be an afterthought. We need to bake it into the foundation of our internal developer platforms. If it is done right, we don't have to choose between speed and responsibility. We can have both. Now, I'm pretty sure that you all will be seeing many workloads idle at different points of the day, different points of the week, like some running reports over the week, some running monthly reports. So rest of the time is just idle and just burning resources. I'm pretty sure all of us would have seen it in our organizations. Let's move to the next slide. Now, the challenge here is, let's look at the main sources of waste in Kubernetes environments. That is typically overprovisioned workloads. Developers, of course, ask for more resources just in case to avoid going through the reconfigurations, approvals, downtimes, or the change windows to make changes at a later point. So typically, developers ask for more resources than it's optimum, and then oversized workloads, teams pulling off OS images when minimal variants would do, so the full size of OS, Windows or Linux or whatever it comes to the platforms, and of course the manual reviews which won't scale automatically. If all this adds up, you are ever open to the cluster and thought why half of these pods are even here. Like whenever we do an offline review at a later stage, we can see many pods are either overprovisioned to a great extent, or probably may not be all of them are required, not even required. So that's the current scenario in many large organizations and medium-sized organizations. Let me move to the next slide. Here is where Kyverno steps in as policy as code engine. It's a native policy engine. The beauty is that it works directly with YAML, so no more extra domain-specific language, or there is no other steep learning curve. It intercepts API requests before resources are created or updated. That means policies can enforce sustainability standards consistently without slowing down developers. The types of policies are typically validation, which reject non-compliant resources, mutation, which auto-fixes configurations, inject limits, and generation policies, which can create defaults like quotas, and then the background scans for quality, which can catch drift in existing workloads. Moving to the next slide. The real power with Kyverno is the automation. So automation efficiency. By automating the resource efficiency practices, Kyverno eliminates the need of consistent vigilance or consistent monitoring. The policies work silently in the background, ensuring the deployments adheres to the sustainability standards. So the developers can keep doing what they do the best, which is developing features. Meanwhile, sustainability is enforced invisibly in the background. This shifts the burden from individual discipline to systematic enforcement. In other words, developers don't need to think about it, but organization will still benefits out of it. by introducing Kyverno to manage the policies as code. Moving to the next slide. Let's look at some numbers here. Actual resource optimization results. So 40% reduction in cluster resource usage, which Kyverno can bring in, improved application performance, fewer nodes needed in the same work for the same workloads. And this just isn't green. It is efficient cost saving for the organization, and sustainability here is enabler and not a blocker. And these are the real numbers Kyverno can bring in and scale the pods horizontally. Let's look at the mutation policies or where the magic happens. By injecting the resource requests and limits, configuring the autoscalers, swapping out large images for slim approved ones. The key benefit, developers don't change their workflow policies and force green defaults automatically. So these are all baked into the Kyverno engine, which brings all these features automatically to the platform. Now let's look at how it prevents overprovisioning or oversized workloads. The validation policies act as guardrails. They prevent inefficient or dangerous configurations from ever being created. The tip here is it will start with an audit mode, so you don't need to break the existing workflows, then gradually tighten enforcement always. Let's see how it generates policies for responsible defaults. The generation of policies here is proactive. For example, auto-creating quotas for new namespaces, setting default resource limits automatically. These are all part of Kyverno features, and it gets enabled by default in the platform. This ensures balance between freedom and guardrails. Teams still innovate and do what they do the best, but they can't hog the resources unchecked, unlimited. So there is a guardrail always preventing to keep the organizations with the policies they wanted to implement without compromising on the quality. Let's look at how the background scans happens and what kind of remediation is taking. So even with these strong policies, definitely drift or change happens. The background scans can continuously check existing workloads for idle pods, just like a heartbeat or a monitoring system. It will catch the orphan namespaces and over-allocated resources. This remediation can be reports, alerts, or even automatic cleanups if it can be enabled. This flexibility lets organizations adopt sustainability at their own pace and not as an enforced one. Let's look at the developers, how the developer experience can be integrated to Kyverno. So here, sustainability only it's frictionless for developers. It should be. That means integrating the checks into the portals like Backstage, showing green compliance checks alongside the build and test status, providing inline feedback with actionable fixes. Here, the goal is developers don't see the sustainability as work as an extra work. It just become part of their normal workflow. It'll become the norm instead of an exception or an extra effort. That's the key point here. If you introduce Kyverno. How we can do is in a graduated environment. Typically, we cannot jump straight into strict enforcement. There will be impact within the team. Instead, it's always recommended to take a slow, steady, graduated approach. So first line starts with education, warnings, documentations, courses, etc. Then typically it starts with soft enforce, like blocking major violations, allow minor violations to keep things moving. And then once it reaches a level of maturity, enforce strict policies, then the teams are used to it, lock it down. The phased approach ensures cultural buy and not just a technical enforcement, and it will not get seen as a top-level order to go with it in the next day. It will be a slow and steady enforcement in the system. Let me move to the next slide. Let's look at some dashboards and KPIs and the metrics. So with introducing Kyverno into the environment, and on average resource utilization can be moved from 55% to 85%, which is typically considered as the optimum, between 80 to 90. The policy compliance can go from 60% to 92% and fully automatic. There's no additional human work involved here. And 25 to 30% of power savings, which is typically outside of like developers and other technical resources will not have the visibility to it, but at the end, whoever manages the database, data centers, whoever pays for the data center bills, there will be a reduction in the power bills. These are kinds of numbers which can definitely win leadership support, and dashboards keep both engineers and executives aligned. Let's look at the next slide. How comprehensive the Kyverno framework is. If you put it all together, there's a lot of good contents here, but to summarize, if you put it all together, we need policy as a code automation, developer workflow integrations, clear KPIs and dashboards, that is key performance indexes, graduated enforcement, and this is just about adding overhead. It's always building sustainable IDPs that improve efficiency and productivity at the same time. Let's also look at a few real-world examples. And there are snippets of the code which we can use as a demo here. I'm not running a demo in the real time, but let's see if you are free to review the code. And in effect, what the summary is, it shows a simple before and after conditions of a pod with no limits versus one where Kyverno auto injects requests and limits. The message here is sustainability doesn't mean slowing down. It always means building smarter defaults so developers stay fast while platforms stay efficient and optimum. The code here is real code which can be used. Let's also look at the key takeaways finally. Kyverno enables sustainable Kubernetes at scale. Developer experience and sustainability are not trade-offs. They can coexist. Policy as code brings consistency, automation, and measurability. And smart and small, requests and limits first, they grow into quotas, dashboards, and more. If there is one thing I wanted you to remember, it is this: sustainability is not a tax. It's an enabler for cost savings, efficiency, and responsibility for a better planet. And with that, let me thank you for your time. And I would like to hear your questions or experiences. How do you sustainability fitting into your platform strategies? Thank you again for your time.
That was fantastic, and such an important message for people to internalize. It's incredibly important. We do have an interesting question here in the Q&A from Veena. She's wondering, is there or have you come up with a reference sustainability benchmark for Kubernetes workloads?
Yes, so there are different publications from Gartner and other leading agencies. So that's always there. We can refer to that for the baseline. It changes a little bit every year or every quarter they publish it. I do not have the numbers readily, but we can get back to you with the numbers from Gartner.
Fantastic. Yeah. I know that there's a lot of work that goes into different types of benchmarks, and at this point in time, a lot of sustainability benchmarks. But yeah, it's fantastic to see you and your work with this, especially using different types of policies in order to make this more feasible for people. We have one more question. Asking, would you be sharing the slides after this event? So that's probably a very big question for a lot of folks here, because you are talking about getting buy-in and you have some fantastic data that you've shared there. So will slides be available?
Definitely. Courtney, just let me know where to post it, how to share it, and you can share it with the wider team.
Fantastic. We will ask all of our speakers to share slides, and we can probably get those posted on our Kyverno Slack channel for folks to take advantage of.
I can share it in mail, or give me the place where you want me to upload that. It'll be there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. That's great. This has been this is, I think, so far the talk I was looking forward to the most, and the data that you shared, the data points that you shared are spectacular. So thank you so much for joining us. Really fantastic topic.
Thank you, Courtney, and welcome. And thank you everyone who was part of this session. And thanks again for Courtney and your team for providing me the venue.
Great. And I'm sure Rajeev will stick around if you have more questions in the upcoming minutes. Otherwise, we thank you for joining us, and I will have our next presenter join us.